Hello and welcome to this lesson on Vlookups as well as conditional statements. So here we're going to look at a scenario where we have different vendors, and these vendors pay us rebates on the amount of money we spend at the vendor. So here are all the vendors. These vendors are subsidiaries of larger parent companies, right? So you can see that vendor 1 is a subsidiary of parent number 1. And vendor 75 is a subsidiary of parent 60. So what we have here is a situation where we have to choose, do we want to use the rebate percentage that's offered by vendor 1, or do we want to use the rebate percentage that's offered by parent company 1? And we can only choose one rebate percentage for us to use. We can't file for both rebates, so we really need to make a smart decision about which rebate rate to use. So this is our main table here. This is where we're going to pull in all of our data and try and analyze the situation. Off here to the right, we actually have a different table that holds the rebate rates for the parent accounts. So in order to pull in those parent rebate rates, in order to compare them to the rebate rates for the subsidiary vendors, which are shown here in this column, column E, we're going to use column F to bring in the parent rebate rate. So we use the function Vlookup, which allows us to use the information in the table where we are currently situated to find a common factor in a second table, the one off to the right, and then bring in other pieces of data from that second table based on the match that we are basically putting into Vlookup here. So you can start a formula by typing it in, you equal sign, and then start typing it in, and then you can press the tab button, which completes the name of the formula and opens a parentheses. So it's very important when you're doing a Vlookup to realize what the common factor is between the table you're in and the table that you're going to be getting data in from. So right now we're in this table here, and we have parent company, and we see that in this lookup table here, there's also parent company there. So we can use that exact same field. We can look up parent company in one table from our current table, and then grab parent rebate rate from that second table based on the match. So as you can see here, it says, what is our lookup value, right? This is kind of your starting point as you try and write a formula. It's telling you exactly what needs to be put in for it to work. So the first thing it's asking for is a lookup value. Lookup value is the common factor between the two tables, and that's parent. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and register that as our lookup value, and then type a comma so that we can go to the next argument or part of a particular formula. So now it's asking for a table array, and the table array is really the second table that we're going to be using to look up data from the table to bring it in the first table. So, and that's going to be this table here. It's very important that you start this array with the common factor that you're using in the first table, right? So that is our parent account. So we need to start this array with the parent account, okay? We can't start off here and include some hypothetical data that might exist, or here, because what's happening is it's going to look from one parent account to the second parent account, and if it doesn't find anything, you're going to get an error. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to use this as our table array, and then we're going to lock this reference using the F4 key, and that basically makes it so that doesn't move. Our reference to that table doesn't move as we paste this formula down on our main table, right? The table that we're writing the formula in. Then we're asked for this column index number, and that's really actually easy. It's really asking how many columns to the right do you want me to look to pull the data back in, right? So it's presumed that the value in C2 is going to be found in the L column, And then once it finds it on that particular row, it's going to go and look at the second row in the table array, and it's going to return that value. Okay, and then the last argument is typically false. It's basically has to do with how exact or approximate your match is going to be. It's almost always false for the things that we're trying to accomplish. So we pull this in and we say, okay, well, that's 400%. That's crazy. Who's going to pay us a 400% rebate? That doesn't make any sense. So what it means to me is that this table is formatted incorrectly. The numbers are not quite the way they're supposed to be. And I'm thinking that this should actually be 4% and not 400%. So we have a couple of options here. What we can go do is we can go into this formula and we can divide it by 100, and that way you can get 4%. That's nice and easy. Another thing you can do, if you feel comfortable altering this data, is dividing each of these numbers by 100. Now that sounds annoying unless you know a shortcut. Now what I like to do is I'll type 100 in any cell that I want to copy, and I'll copy that 100, and then I'll go to my Paste Special Values menu, and I'll go ahead and I will divide that number by the copied value of 100. And now these three, because they were selected, were divided automatically by 100, and then you can delete that 100. That's a nifty little trick that you might find useful. So now that we have that all squared away, we can go ahead and copy that and fill in this column. So why did I do this whole thing where I went to the left once, and then down here once, and then over to the right, and then up again? That was weird, right? So the thing is, in Excel, you can move really quickly using the Control button. You hold Control and you arrow down, and you get to go all the way to the end of the dataset. However, if you wanted to paste this all the way down, there's really nowhere for you to go when you use Control. If you press Control down, you end up a million rows down. What I do is I copy this value that I want to fill in column F with, and I arrow to the left once, Control down all the way, arrow to the right once, Control Shift up, and then I paste with Control D, right? So that way we have a table with the same amount of rows for each of the three columns that we now feel are completed. Okay, so now what I want to move to is what is called a conditional. And the most common type of conditional is an if statement. So an if statement basically has a logical test, a value if the logical test is true, and a value if the logical test is false. So in the simplest example, if I type in true, and I want it to print 1 if true and 0 if false, it's going to print 1 or 100 because of the formatting of the cell, because the logical test was tripped as true. Now, if I type in false, I get a 0 because the logical test in the first argument of this formula has been tripped as false. Now let's add another example, right? 1 equals 0. So we know that 1 is not equal to 0, clearly. So we should expect the logical test to fail and return a false value, and thus the value that's printed by the cell should be 0. Okay, and we'll just do that the other way. If 1 equals 1, we know that's true, so it's going to result in a true and print 1 or 100 because of the formatting. Okay, so that's just a quick example of what happens here, like what is the background. It's just a simple test. Whatever test is happening, it's going to return true or false. Those are the only two ways it can go, aside from an error. So we can start to create a test and then dictate what we want it to print out. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the test part of it. I'm going to start off by saying if the parent rebate rate is greater than the ordinary rebate percentage, go ahead and print 1. And if it happens that the ordinary rebate percentage is higher than the parent rate, go ahead and print 0. So I printed 1 because 4 is greater than 1. But what if I don't want these arbitrary 1 or 0s to print? What if I want it actually to print the higher rate? So if F2 is greater than E2, print F2. If not, go ahead and print E2. So now we're actually getting the higher rate. So we can do my little navigation trick here and fill in this row, and you can see up here is a great example where the parent rebate rate is higher than the ordinary rebate rate, so we took the parent. Down here, for example, you see that the ordinary rebate rate is 2%, and the parent rebate rate is 0.5%, so we took the ordinary subsidiary rebate rate. All right, so let's see how that differs, right? If we were simply to just take, for example, the parent rebate rate, we would have earned $37,980 in rebates. But with this revised conditional, we'll know exactly which way to go for every single vendor, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to take this revised rebate rate and we're going to multiply it by the spend. And right there, you can see that we almost left $10,000 off the table, $9,400, which represents an increase of 25%, 24.8%. And that's the value of having these skills and being able to write conditional statements that allow you to maximize particular situations. Okay? Now, the last thing I want to make apparent is the fact that we didn't really have to create this and this. We could have done this in one column, right? And the reason why that's possible is because of a concept called nesting. So you can place a particular formula inside of another formula that might make your work a little bit more efficient, or may just save you columns and needless complication. So what if I just get rid of these 2 columns for now? Right now we have our standard rebate rate, our parent rebate rate, and we have a revised rebate rate, which has these conditional statements, right? Which again compares the parent rebate rate to the ordinary rebate rate, and then tells you which one to print, which one is higher, right? So this whole statement here, this whole VLOOKUP, to me, you could take this, having built it, and we're referencing that number because it's F2. We could nest that entire formula and replace F2 with it, and then press return, and then we can copy that and paste it all the way down. And as you can see, this is identical to the original conditional statement, but it's not reliant on column F anymore. So you just saved yourself a column by nesting one formula into another. That's reducing some clutter here and showing off some pretty neat skills. All right, thank you for watching.